I was dreaming of bigger things and wanna leave my old life behind. Thunder.
You're listening to the Create What You Speak podcast. My intention is to change the lives of 1 million women, one podcast at a time. Now let's get started.
Thunder, feel the thunder.
My name is Sloan Fremont, and today I'm going to talk to you about one.
Friend, old friend, it's 4 a.m. What are we doing in the street? I don't want to buy fried chicken. I wish that I was gonna sleep.
Okay, so one, that is the topic of this show this week. And what I really wanted to talk about with you today is how there isn't just one right way to get what you want in your life, right? Like there isn't just one approach or one perfect path or one set of, a checklist of things to follow in order to get what you want. And I've been thinking about this topic for a while, and I know I've fallen into this trap myself, and maybe you have too, where it appears on the surface that, like I said, that there's just one way to do something, and that's the only way that you're going to get the success that you want on a certain topic. And if you don't do it that one perfect and specific way, even if it doesn't feel good to you, that you won't have success. And so I'm here to tell you this week that that's bullshit. That's not true. And I'm going to give you some different examples of that as to why. So as we get into this topic this week, remember, as always, take what resonates with you and leave the rest. I first started to observe this a long time ago, before I changed my life. And this concept of one way to do something. And this was really before I knew anything about creating my own reality or anything else that we talk about on this show. But I used to own a personal finance website for many, many years. And when I started to notice in that personal finance space is that everyone, they tended to travel in packs. Like that's the best way I can describe it. Like they all were like a herd of, sheep going in the same direction and saying the same things and commenting the same things. And, obviously not literally traveling in packs, but they were saying the same things when it came to their blog and the advice that they offered. And they talked about the same things. They suggested the same things. And there was like this uniformity or like this unspoken consensus that if you want to achieve, X, whatever X was, the topic of the week or the day or whatever with your finances, that you had to follow this specific and strict formula, which usually included a lot of suffering. And everyone bought into this. And that it was like the message was that formula was the only way it could be done. And if you didn't do it that way, you simply were never going to achieve this, financial freedom that everybody was after. And so there was this one particular blogger who shot to the top as far as popularity, so whatever that might be defined as, but she started to make a lot of money with her blog, and a lot of money, and everyone wanted to know how she did it. And of course I did too, right? Because we all wanted to try to replicate that. And as this time went on and this person, was very helpful when people would ask her questions, and she had some different, courses and ideas and, all this different stuff to tell people how to, basically replicate what she was doing. But what I started to notice after that stuff started coming out is that I could spot the people who had taken her courses and were following her advice because I could see it in their work, and everyone was doing the same thing. And they were doing the same thing, even if it wasn't their style, or if it was like awkward for them, or if they were, it was like a cookie cutter approach, like a if this then that kind of formula that I noticed. And it's not that this person's advice was bad or wrong. There was absolutely nothing wrong with it, right? I mean, her advice was what had worked for her, and she had the stats and the income to back it. So awesome, great, right? Like there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I guess what I saw in myself and what I started to see in other people is that doing some of the things that she suggested, they just didn't feel authentic for me. But that didn't make it wrong, right? It didn't make it wrong or bad. It just didn't work for me. But at the time, I didn't see it that way. And so it was like I was trying to do something that really didn't feel good to me. It didn't fit what I, maybe my message or what I was going after. And I noticed that in a lot of other people too. And when I started to see that, it was almost like there was this like desperation about it too, right? Like this, like trying to make it happen kind of thing, when the trying part didn't seem right, didn't seem to match the personality. And a lot of that stuff, it just didn't resonate, at least with me. And so I noticed this for quite a while. And, as I thought about this over time, and I keep going back to this, went back to this topic in my mind a lot. And after changing my life, especially, and seeing things differently, the bottom line that I came to, the epiphany, I guess you could say, which seems so basic and so simple, but there really is no one right way to do something to get the results that you want. Right? There's not one formula for every single human being on this earth to do X and then get Y, right? There just isn't one way that's going to work for everyone that will give everyone the same results. And yes, there's suggestions. And yes, there are some things that, they seem like they should be common sense to try, right? But really, in the end, if you take anything away from this episode, I would really like you to know that variation is good. Deviation from what they, quote they, right, whoever they is, from what they say is good. And forging your own path to find your own way to get your desired results is good, right? This is all good. Like, we can take what someone has, given to us as a starting point, but we don't have to follow the same path as everyone else. So let me give you another example outside of the blogging. Weight loss is a perfect one. So time after time, every year it seems like they're coming out, they're coming out with some new diet or new exercise that you must try this, you must do this, and it must be this way, follow this eating plan or this routine or whatever it is. And if you do this, your problems will be solved and you'll have the body that you desire, right? But how many people do you know, like maybe even yourself included, because I know I've done this, that I have followed said diet and or exercise plan to the T, but I did not get the results as promised, right? Have you ever experienced that? I mean, I'm sure if you're listening to this, you have. But then on the other side of that, do you know people who can eat anything they want and barely work out and still maintain the perceived, quote, perfect body? Or there's also people who will swear that if they eat, like, let's say chocolate cake or fast food or soda, that they will almost, they'll get fat and then they almost immediately, gain 10 pounds. But then there's the people, again, who can eat the cake, eat the fast food and drink the soda, and they have no weight or body issues. They don't even think about it. So, two opposite ends of the spectrum, right? So what does that tell us? Well, I think first it tells us that we can't make blanket statements about anything. I mean, we can't say, for example, chocolate cake, soda, or fast food make you fat, because that's not true. Because if it was, every single person who ever consumed that would be fat. And we know that isn't true. So it's like, on the one hand, they, whoever they are telling you to follow this diet and do this exercise or whatever it is, and you'll lose weight, but you try it and you don't, right? So you're frustrated, you're mad, but then there's the other side of that where there's the people who are doing the opposite of what you think you should be doing to get the results. They're eating chocolate cake, they're eating fast food, and they're drinking soda, but they are getting the results. They do have the perceived, quote, perfect body. So what gives, right? Like, what's the deal here? So what I have discovered in my time, especially really digging into this over the past couple of years, that anything and everything in our lives is all about what we believe. It is 100% about what we believe. So you may be following that diet and exercise plan and doing everything perfectly, but if you hate what you are eating, if you hate the exercising, and you don't believe it can happen for you, your body weight isn't going anywhere. It's not, because you don't believe it. You don't believe you can have it, maybe, or who knows, whatever those underlying beliefs are. If you don't believe it, it is not going to happen for you. And it's the same, if you think about, I've said this before on here, unhappy journeys don't have happy endings, right? Like, if you hate the journey you're on, this vibration that you're giving out is one of like dread and, anger and, anxiety or whatever. You're not going to get the ending you want, because your vibration just simply won't let you get there. You are not in a place that's going to take you there. So you're wanting to lose weight maybe and feel better about your body, but you're doing things that don't feel good and they contradict that. So it's like you have this, and I say you, it's all of us, me included in this, anyone listening, right? Who's can relate to this. It's like we have split energy on the topic, and we get stuck in the middle and we're not going anywhere. So that's why we don't see the results. So maybe like you start to feel good and it moves that way a little bit, but then you pull back the other way because, oh, I got to go do this exercise. Or, oh God, I got to eat freaking sweet potatoes and dry ass grilled chicken again today. Right? Like, so we get stuck. We're stuck in the middle and we don't see any results. But that person who's eating whatever they want and not really caring, doesn't have a quote thing about their body, they're not really thinking about it and they don't really care. And so they don't have any resistance to it. So it doesn't matter what they eat, and that shows, right? It shows. So what's the trick here? What's the secret? And I think, for me at least, there just isn't one right way to do that. It's been finding what works for me, taking the pieces that I've learned along the way and putting that together into something that works for me, no matter what anybody else says about it, or, because really it's none of their business anyway. But it's like, the secret really is we get to decide how we want this to go. So on the weight loss issue, like, we get to decide what we like to eat and what we like to do for exercise. And then we get to start doing those things that make us feel good. And that's when we'll start to see the results. So it's like putting a puzzle together, right? Like taking each piece, or maybe a map, right? Taking each piece that feels good and piecing that all together into some sort of routine or daily activity that feels good. And again, that's going to vary for everybody. There isn't one perfect way that you have to follow. You get to decide what you like and you get to decide what feels good to you and then follow that path. But the only requirement is you have to believe it. You have to believe it and it has to feel good for you. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So it's the same with the blogging example I gave above, right? There wasn't one way to achieve those results. And there are many examples of others who've done it differently. But when we try something that feels inauthentic, or, it's like we're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, right? It just doesn't fit. Like it kind of does, but it's just like creaking, like forcing and shoving, and like a lot of frustration and suffering comes from that. And that starts to show in whatever it is that you're doing. So think about it like this. Have you ever tried to shop for the perfect purse, right? I mean, it feels like it doesn't exist, right? And do you want to know why? Because there isn't a purse out there that can morph to our changing moods and personality. Right? There is not a purse that can morph to our changing moods and personality. Like some days you feel like the little purse because you want to be light and free, or maybe you don't even want a purse at all. But then other days you need the big ass purse because you need to take everything with you because you're not sure what you might need. And both are the correct size purse, right? Because they fit different needs based on your mood or whatever's going on with you. And so as we go through life, we get to have a variety of purses that fit our mood and in work with our changing preferences. And going after what you want in life is the same way. There just isn't one way to do something to get what you want. We get to take a little from this suggestion that feels good and work with that for a while. And then we get to take a little from that book that we read that feels good and work with that for a little while. And then we get to take some things that we heard from a podcast that we really like and put that all together into our own customizable plan that fits our needs. No one else's, our needs. And we get to feel around in it. We get to try new things and we get to relax a little and even have fun with it, right? Because I think often we make this stuff so damn serious, and it's just not that serious, right? It's okay to have fun with it. And so, of course, there's a starting point, right? There's going to be a starting point with everything, but you get the choice after that to feel your way through it, right? You get to notice that, as your preferences start to change, or as you try things that, you'll change your mind about something, and that's okay, right? Your mood's going to change, your needs will change, and your beliefs will also change. And that's when you get to just continue to feel your way through it. So when your preference changes, you get to follow that preference, and then you get to follow the next preference and the next, each one feeling better than the last. And so, and like I said, feeling good, it really is the key with anything that you do, especially if you want to see changes in your life, and especially if you want those changes to be easy. So this thought about the purse thing, it came to me right before bed, and I'm really glad I wrote it down because I wouldn't have remembered it. But I really love the analogy with the purse to illustrate the point of there just isn't one size fits all, right? There just isn't when it comes to life. And I think sometimes we feel bad about changing our preferences, or we feel bad about changing our minds. But we don't feel bad about changing our purses, right? We don't feel, that's just a thing, right? It's just the common sense thing to do. So why can't our choices in life be that way too, right? Like, I think maybe we get stuck sometimes, like once we've made a decision that's what we have to do, even if we don't like it or even if it doesn't work for us. And I think when we do that, we just get stuck in these ruts, and then we end up feeling terrible about it, and then we don't get the desired results. And then we blame the diet or the exercise or whatever it is for our unhappiness, when really it was our own decisions and our own beliefs about our decisions that got us there. I mean, if you really think about it, doesn't it make sense that if we don't feel good in the process of doing something, we're probably not likely to get the results that we're seeking, right? Or if we do happen to get those results, we probably had a lot of struggle and a lot of pain, and it really wasn't the easy path to get us there. So why do we keep making these choices that make us unhappy, right? Why do we keep doing that? Why do we keep doing these things that don't feel good and, actually end up taking us farther away from what we want? That's something I ask myself a lot, and something I think about, and I would encourage you to think about too. And we could talk for hours about that, right? About the why. But the bottom line really is this. I mean, there just isn't no one perfect or right way to do anything in your life. And the good news is you get the choice. You have the choice. You get to follow what feels good for you to create your own plan and leave the rest, right? That's why I always say at the beginning of the shows, take what works for you and leave the rest, because I really mean that. I want you to take the pieces that work for you and dismiss the rest. They're not for you, right? And then you get to move on. So as you move forward this week, start to take a look in your own life. Are you trying to apply one way to something that you want, thinking it's the only way and it's the right way to do something, but deep down knowing that it doesn't feel good for you, right? Like, are you following some diet or exercise plan that you absolutely hate, but you think it's the only way you can get results? Or are you trying to fit a square peg in a round hole anywhere in your life? So I'm asking you this week to pay attention to that and see if you can start to move away from the things that don't feel good and start to move into that place where you find the things that do feel good for you. Start to relax a little and maybe even have a little fun with it, right? Like, lighten up and then notice how things start to change for you. Because no matter what the path looks like for you, you do live in a time and space where you are fortunate enough to be able to follow the path that feels good. So instead of resisting it, why not partner with it? All right, so that's all I have for you this week on the topic of one. I'm going to do a quick recap on the show, and then I'll talk about the songs I chose, which I'm really excited about those songs, and then I'll close this out. So I started talking about this concept of there just isn't one way to do something to get the desired results that you're after. But it's really easy, especially in this day and age, I think, with seeing social media, all that kind of stuff. We get swept up in this thinking that this is the way, right? I have to do it this way. And whether it's weight loss or making more money or really anything in your life that you want to create, you do have the option to choose things that feel good to you and create your own path that works just for you. And I think anything and really everything in our life comes to us based on what we believe. So if we don't believe it can happen for us, it won't. And so you may be following that diet and exercise plan and doing everything perfectly, but if you hate what you're doing, if you don't believe in the plan, or you hate the exercising, your body isn't going to change. You're going to stay in that energy of the split energy, that stuck place right in the middle where you'll see no changes. Or maybe you want to make more money, or you want to get out of debt, and you're trying all these things that, quote, they are telling you, and maybe it works a little bit, but really deep down you're finding it's too restrictive, you can't have any fun, and you don't really believe it's going to work for you anyway, so what's the point? So if you've ever been in that or felt that before in your life, I really want you to understand from this episode that the trick here, or the secret, or whatever you want to call it, to creating the reality we want is there just isn't one right way to do it. The secret is you get to decide what works for you based on the information you know and start to take action from there. So some things you can do is start to write down the ideas that you like when you're reading something, right? Or when you talk to somebody or when you listen to something. Start to pay attention to what resonates with you, or write it down or record it in your phone or whatever you do. But write down, notice, pay attention to an idea or concept that feels good for you and something that you think is doable for you on the topic that you want to create. And then start to do that. Do that thing that feels good and that's doable for you, and then do the next thing that feels good, and then the next, and then before long, you'll have started to build this positive momentum that feels amazing, and that's when you see the results. That's where you see the results, from that positive momentum after doing the one thing that felt good, and the next, and the next, and the next. And it's really like putting a map together, or maybe a puzzle, right? It's like taking each piece that feels good to you and laying out tracks for that, for the next thing, for the next thing, for the next thing. And those tracks or those pieces, they start to form a routine or your daily activity, which in turn becomes your life. And that's how, and when those things feel good, that's how you create your own reality. That's how you create the life you want. So give it a try this week and see how it goes. Okay, songs for this week. Okay, new artist I just found, like I said, really excited about her. Her name is Angie McMahon. I believe she's Australian. And I don't know, I love her vibe. She's got like 5 or 6 songs out right now, and I love them. So I decided to do both an intro and outro of Angie McMahon this week. And so the intro song is called Slow Mover. And it goes like this. Okay, this is one of the chorus lines. So maybe you'll get married, maybe fall in love, because you can't fall asleep when you're not holding me. Go get set on fire, go get set on fire. And so there's variations of that in the chorus. But then she says, friend, I am a slow mover. Friend, I am a slow girl. Trying to be kinder, crawling in another world. And I don't know, there's something about that vibe, the song, like her voice. I like it. I really like it. It's fun to crank in the car and drive. All right, outro song. I really struggled with this because there's 2 songs of hers, my top 3 that I really like. One is called Pasta, and then the other is called Missing Me. So I chose to close this out with Missing Me, but also listen to the other song called Pasta. And actually, I just realized I wrote the wrong lyrics for that. So let me get those lyrics for you really quick. Okay, so she's talking about loving you has thrown me, loving you is lonely, and then she talks about missing me. Like, I think the concept of the song is like, you know, you've done me wrong, and like, I'm missing me, right? Like, you better be missing me, but I'm missing me too. So Missing Me by Angie McMahon. Check her out. Let me know what you think. All right, so that's it for this week's topic of 1. I would love to know what you think of the episode and what you think about my belief at least, that there's not just one right way to get what you want. You can email me, sloanfremont@gmail.com. My website is sloanfremont.com. I'm also on Instagram @sloanfremont. And if you like the podcast, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review it in iTunes so more people can find me. Abracadabra, now go forth and create what you speak.
Loving you has thrown me. You have been my only rock.